I believe you all know from history books that when the Spanish set foot on the American continent, they discovered that the Aztec Empire had a large amount of gold. At that time, the ruler Montezuma II regarded the white-skinned Spaniard riding a tall horse as the white god. Not only did he have no will to resist, he also knelt down and treated the colonists warmly to lure the wolf into his house. Montezuma II gave gold to the Spanish. After getting the gold, Cortés immediately changed his attitude, imprisoned Montezuma II, and killed more than 10,000 elites of the Aztec Empire. But when the last Aztec hero, Cuauhtémoc, died, no one knew where Montezuma's treasure was anymore. Today we are going to talk about this story. Please help share and subscribe to the channel before the program starts. The Aztec Empire had ruled over central Mexico since the early 15th century and was made up of a triple alliance between three city-states, Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan. It's believed around 6 million people fell under the domain of the Triple Alliance. The man who ruled over the empire was Montezuma II, the 9th Aztec emperor. From his palace in Tenochtitlan, Montezuma had conducted an aggressive expansionist program since coming to power in 1502. The Aztec Empire grew in size, power, and wealth during his reign. Montezuma transformed the already magnificent city of Tenochtitlan into a cultural wonder, adding a zoo, botanic gardens, and even a library to its already impressive display of pyramids, temples, and plazas. The year was 1519 and Spanish conquistador, Hernán Cortés, had landed on the shores of what is now Mexico. The annals of history tell us this was a pivotal moment in the history of the Americas as it marked the beginning of the end for one of the continent's greatest empires, the Aztecs. Leading his small army of soldiers inland, Cortés began making alliances with various indigenous people, including the Tlaxcalteca tribe, a longtime enemy of the Aztecs. It wasn't long before Cortés found himself standing on the main causeway leading into the island city of Tenochtitlan, the capital city of the Aztecs that lay in the center of Lake Texcoco. So, when the Spanish arrived at the gates of Tenochtitlan, they entered the realm of an empire at its peak. Tenochtitlan was insatiably curious about these European visitors and greeted them with open arms, exchanging gifts of gold and silver on the causeway. It was one of the most critical meetings in the history of the Americas, as after this moment everything changed. It gets a little bit murky from this point in regards to exact details. Most evidence of what happened next was documented by none other than Cortés himself, writing over a year later to the Spanish king. Modern historians have cast a great deal of doubt over the accuracy of Cortés' account, which they believe heavily slanted the narrative in favor of the Spanish. If Cortés is to be trusted, Montezuma saw the Spanish as walking gods, fulfilling a long-held Aztec prophecy that a mighty foreign army would one day come and subjugate them. Cortés even quoted Montezuma as saying that he was only keeping the Aztec throne warm for the Spanish king. After surrendering, he invited the Spanish in, where they'd remain for the next 6 months. In reality, the belief that the Spanish were gods and Montezuma's surrender are likely fabrications on behalf of Cortés. However, Montezuma did invite the Spanish in, probably out of curiosity to learn more about them, an action he'd later greatly regret. In the coming months, the Spanish got a taste for Aztec gold and tensions between the locals and their foreign guests became strained. Eventually, things came to a head one night in May 1520 when Cortés was out of the city. During the festival of Toxcatl, when the people of Tenochtitlan honored the god Tezcatlipoca, a massacre of heinous proportions took place. Whilst Aztec noblemen and warriors celebrated in the Great Temple, Spanish soldiers locked them in and murderously descended upon the unarmed revelers, massacring them in their hundreds. The Spanish claimed to be saving innocent people from a human sacrifice, whereas the Aztecs argued it was out of sheer greed after the Spanish saw the gold on display during the festival. In the mayhem that ensued, the Aztec population rose up against their foreign guests. The Spanish seized Montezuma, held him captive, and hunkered down holding a position against the besieging Aztecs. Cortés hastily returned, but it was too late. The Spanish position in Tenochtitlan was untenable, and in early July 1520, they looked to make their escape in the dead of the night. Said to be clutching every piece of gold, silver, and gemstone they could get their hands on, the Spanish headed for one of the causeways. They didn't get far before the alarm was raised, and in the ensuing chaos, Cortés and his army of 500 men were nearly entirely wiped out. Montezuma was killed that night, most likely by the Spanish, but others believe he was stoned to death by his own people for allowing the Spanish to ever enter their lands. The night became known as La Noche Triste, the Sad Night. This is where the legend of Montezuma's lost treasure takes hold. The fleeing Spanish soldiers were said to have dumped it in the waters surrounding the causeway, lightening their load as they ran for their lives. Cortés escaped but returned within the year with a new army that successfully ransacked Tenochtitlan, overthrew the new emperor, and brought an end to the great Aztec Empire. As for the fabled lost treasure, Cortés was unable to find it, sparking theories that in the year the Spanish were absent, the Aztecs dredged it from Lake Texcoco and hid it in a secret location. That location has been the cause of debate throughout the centuries. Some believe Montezuma's treasure was taken north towards what is now the United States. One legend speaks of a party of Aztecs leaving their city and heading northwards after the Spanish left in 1520. They carried with them all the treasures of the Aztec Empire, including those lost on La Noche Triste as well as the exhumed body of Montezuma. Upon reaching an unknown location in the United States, they cursed the treasure before burying it. They then put their accompanying slaves to the sword, leaving just the warriors to stand guard over the hoard. It is believed that indigenous communities in the region saw the Aztec procession, including the immense wealth being moved. The rumor was passed down through oral tradition over the centuries. A variety of locations have been suggested for the whereabouts of the treasure, with the most popular being Utah, after a prospector by the name of Freddie Crystal arrived in the small town of Kanab in the early 20th century with stories of Aztec maps and petroglyphs. Those maps, he supposedly found in Mexico, pointed to a location in Utah being the fabled spot. So far, nothing has been uncovered in the United States. The only piece of gold certifiably identified as being a part of Montezuma's treasure was found in 1981 in Mexico City by construction workers. Tests in 2019 proved the 1.9 kilograms bar was from the time of Montezuma, and it was found on the route Cortés would have taken during La Noche Triste, suggesting that perhaps the treasure never left Mexico after all. One bar, however, doesn't constitute a hoard, and many treasure hunters will continue the quest hoping to maybe find one of history's greatest lost mysteries. One story tells of the 1520 imprisonment of Moctezuma II by Spanish conquistadors. With the conquistadors demanding a ransom in gold, runners were dispatched to warn tribes to hide their treasures. However, none of the histories of the conquest, such as the True History of the Conquest of New Spain by Bernal Diaz del Castillo, say that Montezuma was ever held for ransom by the conquistadors or that any people of the area were told to hide their treasure from the Spanish. A labyrinth found in modern times at the Casa Grande Ruins National Monument led to speculation that it might be home to some of the fabled treasure. Extensive excavation of the area, however, has turned up nothing to support the claim. According to John Mitchell, in 1847, during the Mexican-American War, a Mexican aristocrat named Don Joaquin enslaved the local Apaches to dig for gold in the Sierra Estrellas. But later, as the United States Army entered the mountains, the Apache rose up against the Mexicans, who had to hide their gold in a canyon near Montezuma's head. Most of the Mexicans were killed, but at least one man survived and later went back to the mountains in the 1880s with a treasure map to find the gold. However, the Apache still controlled the area and the Mexican man never found the lost treasure. Newspapers as far back as 1895 have published accounts of people who have claimed to have found this lost treasure. Did you find this program interesting? Welcome to leave your comments. Please also help share and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next episode.